Everybody, it's Amanda.
Hi.
Hi.
And I got some new folks with me. Well, not really new-esque folks with me tonight.
Different.
It's a few of our children. My husband, he was supposed to come on tonight, but he is sleeping. If you don't know, we've been praying about his job for a long time, and he's getting up at like 2:45 to go to work, and it's really a challenge. So getting him on the 7 p.m. live event is really, really hard, and tonight I just can't wake him up. So I was like, you know what? Kids, you're going to go live tonight. So Brian is here.
Two of us.
Yeah, well, a couple of them. Brian is my oldest son. He just turned 22 years old. And you get all of his biblical wisdom tonight. I know you're dying for it. And then Brianna is my daughter. She is 15, and you can also question her, although she's kind of back in the shadow. But
yeah, I kind of look like I'm in the darkness.
Me and Brian have the light right here. But anyway, I'm going to share the link like I always do, and I forewarned them because I was like, we're going to be live, let's talk. So I'm going to, while I share the link, let them tell you what their favorite Bible verse is, just to get us started. And you guys can think if you have any questions for them, biblical questions, they will be glad to answer them. Did you bring Bibles, or are you going to look it up on the internet with me?
I guess we'll look it up.
Okay, then. That's what we'll do. So I'm going to go ahead and share the link on the Fundamental Faith page real fast just to let everybody know that we're here. I'll say, come join me and the kids for the live Bible Q&A. All right, see, I'm letting everybody know they're here.
We would have been more prepared, but this was kind of last second.
It was spur of the moment. So, so you know you'll get genuine answers if you ask questions, because this is not pre-prepared.
We have not scripted this.
It's completely unscripted. Did you have a great birthday, Shania asks?
I did, yes.
He got a wonderful card.
I did.
From Shania.
I still have it.
You say thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. He does still have it. He kept it, and he appreciates it.
Yeah.
So. All right. And that's a beautiful thing there. Lee says hello. Carrie says they have the flu. We'll put you on the prayer list, Carrie. All right. So who wants to start with their Bible verse?
Creature in the shadows.
Okay. So, my favorite Bible verse.
You got to talk louder. They won't be able to hear you.
My favorite is 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. And I like that one because I think it's a really good, like, everyday reminder. So.
Do it all for the Lord. Okay. Brian, what's your favorite Bible verse?
My favorite is Proverbs 22:1. Just a portion of it, Proverbs 22:1a. It's a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches.
You might want to talk louder too. Brian has that very chill, mellow thing back here.
You should
the
be
speakers
in the darkness.
Up here. No, if he was in the darkness, he would totally...
I would just disappear.
Yeah, that would happen. So, okay. Does anybody know my favorite Bible verse? Anybody know what it is? I'm asking you two.
I don't know the reference. I'm assuming it's let everything be done decently and in order.
Let all things be done decently and in order. And it's 1 Corinthians 14:40.
She quotes it all the time.
What was the first Bible verse do you remember which one I made you guys learn?
The first one I learned was John 3:16.
No, but the one that I made.
Children obey your parents.
That was not the
No?
first one. No, I still to this day will say it to you guys when you fuss with one another.
I don't remember.
Okay, my mind's
Something
going.
about treating us. Oh.
My mind is going completely blank as soon as I said it. But
How good and pleasant it is for the brethren to go together.
No, that one I made you remember. Let me find my Bible.
She had several, okay?
Yeah, well, I did a thing with everyone, and they had to have Bible verses they memorized specific to them.
That's the one that came to mind.
Well, that's the one you had.
I guess that means it was successful.
Yes, it was. Let me grab my Bible. You guys...
She's grabbing her Bible.
I see several verses here. John 1, Exodus 14:14, Acts 2:38.
Romans. Nice.
You know, if we'd thought about it, if we'd had time to really prepare, we would have brought our Bibles and looked these up separately.
I bought an extra one.
Oh, good.
Dad's Bible.
She brought Dad's
A Bible.
It's very easy to read.
This is for you. Oh, sorry. Okay.
I've got to know what Acts 2:38 is.
I know, we gotta look them all up. So I'm gonna look, because I have it in my Bible, the one for the kids, that I used to always say to them. Oh, that was what, as soon as I sat here, I remember it. Be ye
Kind one to another.
Tenderhearted, forgiving
got
one
it.
another.
even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you. I used to, they would fuss with one another when they were little, and I would look at them and I would say, be ye, and then they had to finish it. And then they would be kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another.
You can see which one of us remembered, though.
Yeah. Well, you both are, she got it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she argued less. In fairness, the boys had to say that one more often, because when you have two boys close in age, they're always at each other's throats.
No, we were sweet and gentle.
So anyway.
You forgot to tell us about mine, but...
she said, Melissa said, I've read the one about rebellious children being stoned, mother of the year. My husband
loves that verse.
Used to always say, stoned to death.
Yes.
Like he wouldn't even quote the
right
verse.
there.
He would just look at them and say, stoned to death. If you were in Bible times, you'd be stoned to death. That was it.
There's an easy comeback to that, you know. Angie Fathers.
You gonna finish it? Because they might not know.
Where's the fun in that?
It's provoke not your children to wrath. Yeah. Anyway.
But Acts 2:38 was, then Peter said unto them, repent and be baptized every one of you in the name of Jesus Christ for the remission of sins, and ye shall receive the gift of the Holy Ghost.
I am pulling up the other one, which was Romans 12.
And Brianna's sitting in the background.
1. Oh, I beseech ye therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Also an excellent verse. And I've lost where I was looking. Okay, here we go. Oh, it was 1 and 2. Oh, and be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Excellent verses all around.
I really should memorize these references. A lot of these verses I know, but I don't know the references.
Oh, man. Okay, so Lee has a question. As young people, what's the hardest part of living your faith with friends who don't share your faith? And I got messaged a question about peer pressure, and I think those are related. You know, how you deal with people around you who aren't Christians or who might be interested. And of course, it's a personality thing. I'll say Brian's response would be completely different than Brianna's, and Ricky's would be totally different too if he were here. So start with Brian. You're the oldest.
Why not? So as far as that goes,
Gotta talk louder.
As far as that goes, there's really not too much to say. You just have to live the way you know is right, regardless of what people say about it. But you also have to remember to do it lovingly, because that's where most people have the problem.
Yes, that's true. I'm trying to move it up so you guys.
I say just don't do it.
Just don't do it.
You
Just
say
say
it.
no.
You say it to your friends, or you
No, I say it
you say it to yourself.
to my friends because you have to.
Well, that's true. Their personalities are totally different. So, like Brian, I don't think Brian's been approached very often to do bad things.
Not usually.
Because Brian's personality is such, in case you cannot tell, that Brian is Brian. He's quiet. He's who he is. And I don't think people look at him and think, yeah, I could convince him to do that. I think
Not
that's
usually.
definitely not what people's
It
first
doesn't
reaction
work.
is. He is who he is. He's very strong in what he is, and that's all that there is. Brianna, I think sometimes people try to convince her, but in a lot of ways, she's actually much harder than Brian is. Because when she is determined, she is not going to be moved. And actually, ironically, we call these the B twins, Brian and Brianna. They're named after each other. Brian.
No, she's named after me. There's a difference.
Okay. Brian's name means wisdom, strength, and honor, and her name means wisdom, strength, and virtue. The emphasis on their name meaning, if you look it up, is strength. By the way, mental note. Think twice before you name 2 of your children a name that means strength. Just a mental note there for you.
We were excellent children.
You were excellent children, but they're very strong in their will, which is frustrating sometimes as a mom, but it's also an excellent thing in terms of an adult or a young adult, in terms of Brianna, that they're not going to be easily moved. So.
No.
Oh, man. Okay. Melissa says, we had a hard time finding gray areas between bad influences versus just having no friends. And again, they have differences of opinion.
That's probably true. I am perfectly okay with having no friends as compared to having a bad influence.
Brian is like, no friends. I'm cool. Brian would prefer, I think, no friends.
To a bad influence. To a bad influence.
Yeah. He limits his friendship circle
I mean,
very
I
tightly.
Would too.
You would too?
Yeah. I'd rather be by myself than...
You would, but in a different way.
I think a lot of it depends on who's having influence, though.
True.
What do you mean?
Like, if there could be a person with a potential bad influence, but that doesn't mean they are a bad influence.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, you have people come to church all the time, and they could be a bad influence on the church, or the church could be a good influence to them. So it all depends. It depends on the relationship, and it depends on the person.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of personality that plays into those things. I mean, each individual person, like if Ricky were here, he would have a complete, because Ricky, I think, has had the most, I wouldn't say issue, because he doesn't have an issue with it, but he's been surrounded by the most people who might be considered bad influences. Brian, when he went to college, he pretty much kept to himself, because that's what Brian does.
I was much, much too busy for problems.
Exactly. He worked full time. He was doing his schoolwork, and he didn't get involved in all the different extra things. Ricky and Marquise, on the other hand, are involved with all kinds of extra things, and they're surrounded by lots of different people. And I think one of the great things that they do is they are friends with one another, and so they have a good Christian friend around them all the time, and then so the other people are kind of their sphere of influence rather than being influenced by them. Does that make sense?
And that goes back to that verse about having friends.
Yeah.
A twofold cord, a threefold cord.
That's true. And I think somebody said that Psalm 1 was their favorite verse, which Psalm 1 even talks about that. That blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and his law doth he meditate day and night. So...
Yeah, that's the funny thing about the Bible. You start talking about it, and it always points to something.
Yeah, something comes up. So, Brianna, on the other hand, she's still very young, so she hasn't had too much experience being out around people who would necessarily be a negative influence. I think a lot of it's been very limited at this point. So...
See, some of these questions are better for Ricky because both Brianna and I are less social than Ricky.
Yeah, these are the less social people. But I think people wouldn't expect that of Brianna.
Maybe
Yeah.
so.
I am very...
She's very sweet and outgoing. Sometimes.
Well, it's like my husband. If you watch the videos, my husband he's chatty on videos and he'll talk here. But if you meet him in real life, he's silent. He's more like Brian. Very much so. In public, he's silent. Brianna is actually the same. Brianna is quiet in real life. That's it. I'm introverted but friendly. I'm the chatty introvert, but they're like just keep to themselves people. So it hasn't really been too much. Ricky's Ricky's really introverted. He's also a talkative.
An extroverted introvert.
Yeah, he's loud, but he's really a private person. But anyway, Stephanie says she keeps to herself and she has maybe 3 close friends. I've always told Brianna this. This I guess is specific to having girls. I couldn't say girl experience. No, you wouldn't know anything about this. But when she was younger, she used to say something about how she wished she had more friends. And you actually had a large group of girls.
I had more friends when I was younger.
When you were younger.
Yeah.
Because when you were younger, you were all kind of had to be in one place.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, our homeschool group had a bunch of girls that were Brianna's age. There was, like, 12 of them that were all in the same age group, and they were all friends, and they all hung out, and they had a good time. But as they've gotten older, everybody's gotten their own interests and done this and done that, so it's kind of spread out. Mm-hmm. But there were times that she would talk about wishing that she had more friends, and I said to her, the whole idea of doing a public school situation is kind of false, because in real life, once you get to be an adult, you really just have a handful of close friends. And that's what real life actually is. Real life isn't that you're surrounded by people that are great all the time. Real life is you have one or two close people that you see occasionally, and that's it. So, Stephanie said, they're my people. I keep to myself and don't like crowds.
No, I don't do crowds.
Relatable.
Well, I kind of do.
You're funny. You actually, you both are kind of similar in that way.
It depends on my mood.
I just don't do crowds.
No, you don't do crowds, but you do like to be around people.
Yeah.
But not like
In the minimal setting.
in the midst of the people. Just like there's people there.
I like a reasonable sized group, and I like to be away from the reasonable sized group. There's white noise.
Lisa says, I keep to myself a lot. I don't have a lot of friends, and I like it that way. Stephanie said her husband, on the other hand, is the opposite of her.
Richard loves crowds.
He does love crowds. He's not so good.
He loves groups of people.
Yeah. He's funny that way. She's whole picture home, so you're so much like her husband. Melissa says, my teenager has struggled going from public school to homeschool. There's not a lot of homeschoolers her age around here, and they've been very judgy of us for whatever reason. Well, I think the thing with homeschoolers, just having been homeschoolers, Brian actually came from public school into homeschool. And so did Ricky, but Ricky was much younger, so I don't think he had the same experience. Plus, he's chatty anyway, so I don't think it impacted him. But I think homeschoolers are so insulated that once you get to an older age, like all the homeschoolers have known each other.
Forever.
Forever.
It's hard for a new person to kind of break into that because most homeschoolers are introverted people. And not because homeschool makes you an introvert. I think it's just that the type of person... Yeah, the type of person that does homeschool is usually an introvert. Their family usually is too. Exactly.
But,
Case in
but
point.
this is true of changing any school setting, though. I mean, by the time you get to a certain age, everybody knows each other, and it's just hard to get used to it.
Even if you went to a public high school that you've never been to, they've already got their little groups. It'd be harder. But I think in a public high school, they're used to so many people being around. It would be a little bit easier. Just based on my own experience.
Just my opinion, but when you have so many people, sometimes there's a lot of superficial interaction that goes on now.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie said, I know a girl who homeschooled her whole career, and she's the most extrovert I know. Everyone is her best friend. And again, that plays to personality. I mean, I really think your personality is going to be your personality no matter what educational option you choose. So, like, I'm just moving this so you can see Brianna better. I'm trying to anyway. My husband could have gone to any school environment. He would have been exactly the same person. I'm convinced that Brian would have been the same way.
Probably.
Brianna would have been the same way.
I'd probably be even quieter.
Yeah, I do think that. I do think public school would have made Brian more recede into his shell. And I think definitely Brianna would be quieter. Ricky would probably be louder.
That's a scary thought.
I know. But I think the homeschool was good. You enjoyed it. I mean, this is a Bible Q&A, but it's relevant to, I think, Christian parenting. A lot of Christian parents are concerned about this whole idea of peer pressure. Do you think that homeschool helped you with peer pressure at all?
I think in a lot of ways, just for me anyway, I feel that homeschool teaches you to be a little bit more independent.
Yes, I agree.
So in some ways, yes, I think it helps with peer pressure. But I do think that's personality too.
True.
Personality plays a big part in everything.
Well, you all
does,
have different personalities, but you're all very independent. And even your friends who are also homeschooled, way different personalities.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of a couple of friends right now who we talked to today. And they are much more outgoing than we are.
That's true.
But I don't even know where I was going with that. Anyway, oh man,
The thought was lost somewhere.
Yeah, too many things on my head. So, do you guys have any other Bible questions for the kids? Let us know. We'll make sure they answer them. While I have them here, let's see. I'm trying to think of another random question that I can have you answer. Bible related.
See, this is why we're all afraid of coming on with Mama sometimes.
Because I
You
just
never know what
throw
she's
stuff
gonna
at
ask.
them.
I
Well,
know.
that's the
I
nature of a
don't
live
like
event.
that.
That's the nature of a live event. You never know, and you gotta be ready.
But see, you know when you watch something with my mother, you're always getting the absolute truth.
Well, I am an honest person. Do you have a Bible hero? That's a great question. While you guys think about it, I'm going to answer mine.
I have an answer.
Oh, do you? Oh,
yes,
good.
I do.
Great.
I would say my Bible hero is probably Daniel.
Oh, okay. Why? You're very Daniel, personality-wise.
I feel that he took a strong stand and he had his convictions no matter where he was, which I appreciate from Daniel. And also something else about him is that he wasn't really all that different from the average person, I guess. I mean, he was just a random Jewish boy, and the only difference between him and all the other Jewish boys they picked was that he stuck to what he was taught. And I think that's interesting about him.
He listened to his mother.
That's true.
Precious. Okay. Brianna, what about you?
I haven't really thought about that.
Well, recently we've been talking a lot about Esther.
I
thought that's what you were going to say.
That. The first thing I thought is she is so smart. Like, she was such a smart cookie.
Like, she handled things
yes.
wisely?
Like, she didn't jump into anything. Like, she actually, like, thought.
Yeah, she was like, pray about it, we'll fast, and then she had the meat, and then, then they met again. Like, she didn't rush into it like crazy. That's true.
Yeah.
That suits your personality, because you're kind of, you act wisely. That's a good point.
Thanks.
Does anybody know? She said Daniel was a vegan advocate.
Well, see, Daniel was not a vegan advocate. What you have to understand is he was just not for the king's meat.
True. There's relevance there in terms of the meat that we eat, though.
That's true. That's true. I won't argue with that.
Anyway, so.
But I just felt the need to point that out.
You're right. Let's be fully truthful here.
Noah was not a vegan advocate.
No comment. So, do you know my Bible hero? I have an odd one.
That's a difficult question.
I don't think you would guess it in a million years.
Old Testament or New Testament?
Old Testament. There's no way you would guess it, because it's not like one of the main people.
I have no idea.
Okay, my Old
Wait.
Testament. Okay, Brian wants to guess.
I'm just trying to think here. This is many years going into it.
It is a woman.
I don't know this answer.
Oh,
Deborah?
I don't know why. I thought it was a
No.
man.
No, though I've often been compared to her.
I know, that's why I was curious.
No, it's not. Can I
no
just say it?
idea.
The
Just
people
say
are
it.
waiting. Okay. So my Bible hero in general is someone that most people don't even think of as a hero, perhaps, but it was Leah. Remember, Jacob, right? No, it's not. It's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes. Okay. I'm like.
So are you talking about
yes.
the one he was made to marry?
I was trying to remember who the husband was. I couldn't remember. I'm like, he's Israel. But what was his name before he was Israel?
So the husband just wasn't important.
Yeah, he's irrelevant. Forget him. He was just the father, but whatever. So, anyway, Jacob was her husband, but he was tricked into marrying her. And I've often thought of her circumstances, like how she had her dad who did the tricking. So her dad did not respect her or care for her at all. He put her in this situation that was an uncomfortable one, to say the least, and just didn't care for her. And then she married into a situation where her husband was not only married to her, but married to her sister.
And then didn't like her as much as her sister.
And it's not even didn't love her at all. Didn't love her at all. It's not even a question. And she desired greatly for her husband to love her. You can tell just all the prayers that she did all through the Bible, that she wanted to be loved desperately. And I think one of the things that I appreciate about her was that in spite of the fact that she was around all of these people that didn't care about her, what she developed through that was a relationship with the Lord. Because when she was praying, like when she had all of these sons, the one that kind of broke my heart was she kept praying, and she's like, I've born my husband a son, and now he'll love me. And he didn't. And I've born him 2 sons, now he'll love me. And eventually it was like, I've born him 6 sons, and now he'll love me. And eventually she prayed, and she was like, then she honored the Lord. And through that, through her excellence, how she grew through all these difficult circumstances and still remained faithful, the Lord blessed her in such a way that she was the mother of Judah.
I was just thinking that myself.
Yes, the tribe of Judah, the one that was faithful, and the one that Christ came out of. So she's not one that I think most women think of, but Ricky woke up, by the way. Ricky was asleep.
That's why
too.
Brianna
Brianna had to go show him the food. So, So Leah to me is one of my Bible heroes because I think a lot of times she's not recognized, but she's such a great hero that the Lord gave her one of the greatest honors.
I don't know that I've ever really thought about it. Not about her specifically.
Mm-hmm. I think it was just her prayers that really broke my heart for Leah, but Leah is my Bible hero. I know, crazy. She said, whole picture home said, it's a sad story. She is a hero. Melissa said, I can relate to Leah and Rachel's relationship. Not that we're married to the same person, but just the comparison and jealousy. And Melissa's a twin.
Mm.
So, comparison and jealousy. I'm not saying that necessarily happens, but I do have one sister. And my sister, I never really thought about it in terms of me and my sister, but my sister is very beautiful. And I've often thought, wow, she's so beautiful. But I can't imagine if her and I were married to the same person. First of all, I'd feel sorry for that man. I'd feel tremendously sorry for that man. Yeah, I don't even have words for that.
There's much more to say about that.
Nope, let's just leave that alone. So,
let's just say it's not for most people. Neither Jacob nor the father of the girls really had any idea or business doing what they did.
It was an unwise decision.
Yes.
And in fact, I really think Leah, just based on the fact that she always was obedient to her dad doing the right thing, I really appreciate all that she did. Anyway, so, all right, I'm going to think of something else. I can't promise the kids will come back again, so you should ask away. They're probably not going to come back and do live very often.
Now, as far as Bible heroes go, Daniel is my clear favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also torn between Ezekiel and Peter for different reasons.
Really?
Yes.
Ezekiel?
Well, I mean, if you think about Ezekiel, he was different from a lot of the other prophets in that he didn't go around vaunting his prophecies quite the same way, which I'm not saying that they vaunted, but
yeah, I know what you're saying. He wasn't out there with it.
But at the same time, he wrote this influential book, and in some ways I think that he had a clearer picture of what it is that God can do without man.
Okay. Peter? I'm shocked you said Peter, too, because Peter, to me, is the complete opposite of your personality.
Peter was a foolish man. But I think that's what I kind of like about him. I like that he grew wiser and you kind of see his progression. There aren't many characters in the Bible you see progress quite so much.
Okay. Melissa says, I relate to Peter on a spiritual level. I think the disciple that I think I'm most like is Andrew. If they were one that I think I'm like. Because Rick, to me, is more of Paul, if anything.
That's a tough one.
He's like an in-your-face, going out, telling people. And I'm more like Andrew. I'm more like, hey, come over here, guys, and meet Jesus. This guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm more Andrew. I'll bring them along. But so that's just the one I like. She said, I often need the hush anointing. I haven't.
The hush.
Well, that's what they say that I have, because when I'm mad, I'm quiet. This is the hush anointing. Not saying that I never.
There's no salvaging it when I get really mad. I don't get very mad very often.
Mm-hmm. She said, "Oh yes, Rick does seem to be Pauline." Yeah. Yeah.
There's just nothing to say. I really have nothing to say about that.
What are your areas of spiritual giftedness? I know you're one of your major ones. Well, two.
And what would you say?
Well, obviously administration.
That was the one that came to my mind, yeah.
Yeah. Another one for you is giving.
Yes, that's true too.
Brian, I actually think giving would be your number one.
I don't know.
Is there another one that you had?
No. The first one that came to mind was administration, but...
Yeah.
But that's just what I do all the time.
Those are your top two in my mind.
Sorry, I have something on the stove.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And Brianna, your spiritual gift.
Why is it
no response?
Oh.
Let me look.
I don't know.
Let me look at a spiritual gift list. I can probably look one up faster and get it in 1 Corinthians.
That's fine.
All right. I know. I'll tell you what mine are. Do you guys want to guess what my spiritual gifts are? I shall tell you. everyone always thinks that teaching is one. Teaching is definitely one. I don't know about discernment. I wish.
Brianna's very discerning.
She is.
But I don't know that's what I'd call her gift, necessarily.
No. Brianna's very wise. Rick, Senior, and Brianna are particularly
We're a lot alike.
wise. Brian and I have knowledge. They have wisdom, which are two very different things.
My mother is a teacher, yes.
Yes, I am a teacher.
She's my teacher.
Oh, there's the gift of tongues. I forgot that one.
No. Don't even go there, Brian. How dare you do that on a live event? Don't even go there.
I have the shield of the live event right now.
Hold on. Let me just find 1 Corinthians real quick. I actually think my first and best spiritual gift is exhortation. Okay? She said, oh Lord, Brian, stop. All right, so I am a teacher, and yeah, Titus, running the home, that's a Titus thing. That's not really a spiritual gift, but I don't think anybody said Judas. But yes, encouragement, exhortation. That's my number one. I think the very best thing that I do is I can encourage people. If somebody is like waiting and like hesitant to do something, I'm going to be the one right there telling them every reason why they need to do it and get going with it.
That's true.
Exhortation. And then teaching is my secondary.
My personal opinion is that Brianna is actually a teacher. But in some ways, it remains to be seen.
I think she's exhortation. Like me, but not like me.
I see her looking at the two of us in the background.
She is an encourager, but in a different way than I am.
Do you have an opinion here?
I'm just listening.
Okay, so let me tell you what they are.
See, there's only one way to find out. We're going to have to test them all.
That's this. I'm looking at 1 Corinthians 12, right? Okay.
I think you need to block someone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. We'll just get rid of this.
Unfortunately, we don't have anyone else moderating today, so.
I'm trying to find the one that I'm thinking of, and I thought it was in 1 Corinthians 12, but that's not the list that I was looking for. They have
beating people over the head count as exhortation. If that counted as exhortation,
it
then
does.
I would be exhorting many people.
It does.
Many people.
You know what? You know what I actually, in Psalm, I'm getting ready to do in Proverbs 31, in my ladies' Sunday school class, a Proverbs 31 class, and I'm doing it with the Hebrew letters, right? So I'm going to take the Hebrew letters and use that, because Proverbs 31 is an acrostic, and I'm going to take those Hebrew letters and their meanings and relate it to the verse that goes along with it, right? Well, Psalm 119 also has sections that are related to Hebrew letters. Brian actually taught.
Sections, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Brian actually taught. Each section is with the different Hebrew letters. Brian taught on the Hay section one time in his class. Well, the Hay section is actually about teaching, right? So here's what it says in the teaching section. It's Psalm 119, starting in verse 33. It starts with, "Teach me, O Lord, the way of thy statutes, and I shall keep them in the end." So, teach me, number one. Verse 34. "Give me understanding, and I shall keep the law. Yea, I shall observe it with my whole heart." Here's the next part that I love. 35. "Make me to go into the path of thy commandments, for therein do I delight." Hear that? Make me. Then it says, "Incline my heart unto thy testimonies, and not to covetousness. Turn away mine eyes unto thy servant who is devoted to thy fear. Turn away my reproach, which I fear, for thy judgments are good. Behold, I have longed after thy precepts. Quicken me in thy righteousness. Make me alive." So all of that has to do with teaching someone, you're helping someone to do things the right way. So first you got to teach them. You got to give them understanding. Then make them.
There's an aspect to that,
right?
As Ricky and I discovered yesterday.
Then you have to incline their heart. What do you mean yesterday?
When we were doing some math homework.
Oh, math. Anyway, incline my heart, turn away my eyes from wickedness. So, establish my word, turn away my reproach. All these things have to go with helping someone do things in the right way. But make me, aka beating someone over the head, but not literally. Just with your words of encouragement, biblically. No, that would be.
No, someone asked an interesting question about being competitive.
Is being competitive a sin? That's interesting.
I think it depends on how you're being competitive, what your goal is.
Yeah.
For instance, if your goal is to raise yourself up, clearly that's not.
Yeah.
That's not a good reason.
I saw Shania say it's called nagging.
I'm going to stay away from that. I've already made my tongue's comment for the evening.
I think the whole idea of wanting to do things with excellence and do things in the very best way is a good thing. To do things with excellence.
As far as what makes it competitive, it always comes back to personality, or at least I always make a personality distinction. But for me, for example, I find it fun to compete, just to see how well you can do something.
I think if you're competing just to kind of help each other do better, if that's your attitude towards it, like you said, then that's one thing.
So, it really just depends on how you're doing it.
Yeah. If you're doing it...
What's your goal? What's your focus? With
a spirit of pride and a spirit of wanting to all be about you, then that would clearly not be a good thing.
It's like unto the question, is ambition wrong? Is it bad to be ambitious? Don't you think?
I'm sorry, I was reading the next question. What'd you say?
I said it's like unto the question, is it wrong? Is it bad to be ambitious?
No, again,
I think on what you're doing.
This is one of those things that people get confused about, because I've heard this from other people, that they mistake what pride is and what is not. Yeah, I don't know about that.
See, for example, as far as ambition goes, Paul, and I'm using Paul as the example here, but Paul had an ambition to reach the Gentiles. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't for him. It was for
God's glory.
For God's glory. It was for their sake, for this message that had never reached them. And I wouldn't say he was not ambitious. He wanted to reach the entire world, and he pretty much did reach his entire world in his lifetime. Yeah,
Andrea says true. She said, "Isn't pride exalting oneself above God?" And it is. It is. But I think what people, when they think of pride, they think of someone who's like out there in the front, and they're like, doing all this stuff, and they're like, oh, that person's so prideful.
Pride is often a hidden thing.
Yes. I think, and we've heard it said before, I think Rick actually said it. You can be the most prideful person in the room and be the most quiet person in the room.
No one would ever know.
Nope. And you can also be the most humble person in the room and be the loudest person in the room. Because sometimes, and I know this from
Moses is a good example.
Yes. I know this from my own experience. There are a lot of times I walk into a room and I want to be quiet, because I'm really a quiet, introverted person. But I see a room of people who are uncomfortable and like it's awkward, and then I'll go out of my way to try to, smile and encourage everybody and bring them together. And I'm not saying I'm super humble. Don't take that the wrong way. But I'm just saying I'm not doing it to make myself of importance. I'm doing it for the sake of everyone else, because it's like the last thing I want to do. So I know that other people can do that too, and do it with humility. It just depends on your spirit. And that's why I think the Lord knows your heart and not you. I had a 15-year-old question, so you got to come here.
Sorry, I have something.
What's the question?
The 15-year-old question is, would you guys be scared of growing up now? This is, I guess, to you guys. This person says, I'm 15 and very religious, but constantly pressured into drinking and sex. Hard to find anyone my age who believes. Let's see.
That's a good question. Would you be afraid of growing up?
Brian is 22. Brianna is 15.
Maybe, Brianna, you're best to answer this first, and then I'll give my opinion.
Right there. So I think, first of all, if you're being pressured into drinking and sex, then you're probably around the wrong people.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine you've ever been pressured with drinking or anything else. Am I right? No. I mean... Oh, I'm sorry, I have it on. Rick always tells me to put it on live chat, and I always forget. My apologies. Then things show up and they stay for a while.
I didn't notice it either.
Yeah. So, if you're being pressured, you're probably around the wrong people. And if you're in a school situation and you can't get away from them, then even within a school situation, you can still not necessarily be friends.
Yeah.
With people who would try to do that. And we were talking about that earlier, how you guys felt that you'd rather, Brianna, you're going to need to move this way a little bit so they can see you. There we go. So
you look so nice tonight. You can't hide from people.
Don't hide. Get out of the shadows. So just the idea that you kind of need to stay away from, see, and I guess when I went to public school 22 years ago.
I guess it was.
And when I went,
I'm really just a milestone.
That's what you are.
I'm like that little bookmark in her life, and she references.
It's easy that way. It wasn't easy then. I mean, there was a lot of pressure then, and we didn't know any better then. You know, I was a Christian then, but I didn't know anybody, like you said, who was a Christian, but I didn't even know what it meant. Like, my biblical knowledge was so small because my parents weren't Christians. They just sent me to a church, and I was there at the church like one day a week, but I didn't know enough to know anything. And so all of those pressures, but even then I didn't get pressured into drinking very much because I had decided earlier, as a young person completely unrelated to Christianity, just seeing people who were alcoholics in my life, seeing that, decided that I wasn't drinking, and so I was never around the people who drank. You know what I mean? I just completely said, I'm not having any part of it, and so it didn't come to me.
You really can't be pressured into something that you've made up your mind on. I mean, in the end, the one thing that God gave us that's unchangeable is our ability to choose.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I see it. For example, Daniel, again, who I was talking about, was 15 when he was brought into captivity. And I would say he had quite a few temptations, but he made up his mind.
Mm-hmm. He even gave up me.
Yes.
At 15.
Just to make a point.
Yeah. Crazy. Who does that? I had a hard time at 40. Anyway.
But I think some things are, regardless of age, even if age makes it seem more challenging.
And they said even in private Christian schools. And, you know, that's true because in our experience with private Christian schools, they did attend private Christian schools, but also they know friends who are in private Christian schools. And private Christian schools are no different than the public schools. They're being taught biblical things. But the kids are kids, whether they are there, the kids are kids no matter what educational option they're involved in. So, let's see. Have you guys ever had any, have ever had your faith hindered by trials in your life?
Well, isn't that why they're called trials?
Yes.
Who hasn't?
I think Ricky's had the hardest time. Again, Ricky would probably be better for that.
Maybe in some ways, I guess.
Just because he got so sick. And I think
that was a trial for my mother, too. Which is why she writes about it.
But I know it was for him as well. Because it was just, like, he got, if you don't know, when Ricky was 14, he got really, really sick. And nobody knew what was wrong with him. He was losing weight. He couldn't eat. I mean, literally could not eat. Could eat nothing. Was in the hospital. Couldn't eat food. Couldn't have water. He could take nothing into his body for at least a solid week. And then eventually he got to where he could have some water and he could have some lettuce and he could have some watermelon. And then he went for months where he could have almost nothing. And then they were tested. They thought he might have cancer. They thought, I mean, there's so many different things they tested him for. It was ridiculous. And it was months. He had other friend who got sick at the same time, and she ended up on a feeding tube. Like, it was really, really bad. And I think during that time it was challenging for everybody. And so I think that time probably would have been the biggest trial that anybody else has ever been through. Brian lost his dad. I don't know that that necessarily tried your faith.
No, I wouldn't say so.
If anything, I would think that might even make it stronger in a certain way. Brianna hasn't really had any major trials. But she's only 15. You know?
Whole life ahead.
Yeah. Does not rush the trials. I don't think I had any major trials in my life till I was probably 16.
Oh no.
Probably 15 or 16 years. She's getting ready to turn 16.
Yeah.
So, but Ricky was 14. Assuming it was your dad. How old were you when he passed away? 15?
No, I was 17.
17? So, I mean...
I had just started working.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that when you're so young, you don't necessarily have major trials that test your faith.
I think that maybe calling it a major trial is where you come into question there. Everyone has trials that try their faith. It depends on what it is.
How about whose mother dying? I'm their mother.
Your mother dying? Okay, Mama is not allowed to die. We have forbidden it.
Yes.
I think I'm okay.
We will drag her back.
I've been doing good since I'm vegan.
We'll drag her back from heaven.
My mom's still around. Rick's mom's still around. My mom's still around.
Honestly,
My
I hope
mom's
your mother
strong.
hasn't died yet.
Yeah.
She's a strong woman.
Yeah. Let's see. Melissa says that a lot of kids get sent to Christian schools because they get in trouble in public schools. That does happen as well.
Trouble follows people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Our pastor actually has a really good way of putting that.
It was my grandma. My grandfather died recently. But I wouldn't call that a major trial.
That was kind of unexpected.
Yeah, it was unexpected, but I wouldn't call it a major trial. Not like Ricky being sick, not like my cousin whose daughter had cancer. Like, to me, that's a major trial. And maybe we just all have different ideas of what a major trial is.
Yes,
like, I think
that's what I was saying.
Major. Like,
that's just because you've had one that's like
major. Yeah, everything else pales in comparison.
But for some people, it's a small thing.
Yeah.
But character, no matter what the trial is, anything that tries your character, tries your faith, anything is a major trial. Yeah. It's little things that break people.
Let's see. Lynn says, I had that problem. My friends were at church. I didn't have friends at school. I had casual acquaintances, and there's a difference. Brian has casual acquaintances everywhere.
I do. Except I don't like having casual acquaintances, so we could call it less casual acquaintances.
How do you deal with the alcoholics in your life?
Do you have alcoholics in your life?
Well, when I was younger.
Oh.
Yeah, not like... It wasn't anyone close.
I was thinking in the present.
No. Because I mentioned when I was younger and there were alcoholics around. And so they weren't actually like my parents. My parents weren't alcoholics. The alcoholics were people that they knew. And so when we were around them, they made me so uncomfortable that I was like, I don't want any part of that ever. And so I just never had any part of it. I just didn't want anything to do with it. There were people in my life who struggled with alcohol, and when I got older, and I would try to encourage them to. Rick and I worked in addictions ministry for years, and then we had personal relationships with people that had difficulties with alcohol, and we would try every way we could to encourage them to get away from it.
I'm waiting to see where you're going with this.
Well, I don't know how much I want to say, so I don't be too personal with you.
I don't care.
Okay. Well, Brian's dad actually had an alcohol problem.
Yes, he had a major alcohol problem.
And he died at 36 from alcohol. Now, technically, he died from diabetes.
But it was alcohol related.
Yes. So, anyway, so that was challenging, to say the least. And we always tried to encourage him.
It was difficult for him.
Mm-hmm. He struggled for a lot of years dealing with that. But, and like other people who struggle with that, he was in and out of different programs, and it was just challenging. But, we certainly...
I'm not sure what to say about alcohol that's different about really anything else, though.
No, because we've dealt, like, again, with people in different addictions programs that we've worked in, drug addicts. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of people that are addicted to food. There's people that are addicted to all kinds of things in their life. They have just these addictive personalities. And, I mean, in a smaller sense, I think Rick Sr., like, he loves coffee. You know what I mean? And he drinks coffee all day long. And I think if he were the kind of person who'd ever gotten into drinking alcohol, or if like his parents had drank alcohol, he would have drank alcohol because it's just his personality to be addicted. And he just had never had that example set for him. So he never did it. And so it's a challenge. It's something that you really got to struggle with and you really got to fight against. But we all have struggles. Every individual person has something that they have to struggle with. And that's why when you deal with people who have these addictions, you have to remember that within yourself, that it's not like they're so bad or they're not doing what they need to do. Because people want to get in their face sometimes, like, you need to do this.
Self-righteous.
Yeah. And remember within yourself that there's a lot of things that you struggle with and that they really just need the Lord and they need to turn to Him. Yes. And I totally agree with that. Melissa said a lot of people who struggle with addiction are either self-medicating a mental health issue or they have very poor coping mechanisms for trauma. And exactly, Rachel's Nest said food is a big one for me. And so there's a lot of different ways people cope poorly. But everybody has things in their life that, it done not in moderation, could negatively impact them. You know what I mean? And it's very hard to let go of things that you've made a part of your life. I mean, I just gave up meat, which is not the same thing by any means, but you take anything in your life that's been a part of your life and cut it out, and everybody else around you is still doing it. I mean, it's challenging, and it's not something that everybody can do. You know what I mean? But I don't even know how we got on. That was the question was, how do you deal with alcoholics in your life? How do you deal with them? I think you need to be humble. You need to have a spirit of humility. You need to encourage them. You need to do as much as you can to help them turn to the Lord. And in order to do that, you need to have,
I think,
gracious spirit.
The most important thing with people, not just with alcohol, with any addiction, but alcohol is a very visible one, so in some ways it makes more difference, is take that thorough stand that you're just not going to do it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they just need to be around someone who says, I'm not going to do it, and see that, hey, not doing it, it works, it can be done. Mm-hmm. I mean, back to Daniel, who seems to be very applicable tonight, and his vegan diet. I mean, it's kind of similar, too, because they were drinking wine. He had his beans and his water. But it's a similar thing, you know. He took his 10 days and he made his point that it could be done and it could be done better without it. Mm-hmm. So I think in some ways addiction is a similar process. It's just, a lot of times you don't really need to change people. You just kind of have to convince them that they need to change themselves. That there's a reason to change. You need to. That's why they have to have a close relationship with the Lord. And that's why I think this is the big issue that people have when they're trying to tell people about the Lord. They're like, you need to get your life right. You need to get in church. And it's not about getting your life right. It's not about getting in church either. No, it's about having a relationship with the Lord. And the more that you change, and the more that you get closer in your relationship with the Lord, the more that you want to change, the more that you want to make changes in your life and be closer to Him. And so that is the very best thing that you can do, because you can't nag them to death and make them do it. That's not going to happen. And Abby, to answer your question, no, you can't change people who don't want to be changed. No, you can't. But I think that there's a bit of a misnomer about that, too. There are a lot of people, it's not that they don't want to change, they don't have a reason to change. Mm-hmm. They don't see a reason to change. Yeah, people really struggle with that. And that goes back to the self-medicating thing. Like, they don't have a reason, they can't cope with the stress of it, so then they fall back into it. And it's just a constant cycle. My mother and I were just reading a book that actually discussed this principle. You can't say what it is, because I'm going to talk about it in a book review on Sunday, and I won't tell Melissa. Well, then you all can't now. Nope. Shh. But now I have given her food for thought for her review. You can always be a good influence. Yes, you can. You can always try to be a good influence. But not in a high and mighty way. You know, we're back to pride, too. Yeah. Go figure. Yeah. Sometimes, even when you're trying to do the right thing, pride gets in the way. Mm-hmm. And that can be the same thing with trying to change someone, because you don't have to change someone. And you shouldn't change someone. You have another interesting perspective in that you work for a nonprofit organization, and you see people come in. I see these kind of people all the time. You see people come in who need help with food or their bills, and some of them struggle with addiction.
and you still and I always say this, I say this all the time. I say one word.
There's a difference there too, but we can address
What's
that in a
the
moment.
one word I say?
As far as?
I always tell you one word. Brian.
Be kind.
That's not the word. I said, what? I'm gonna put it on a picture on your wall.
I don't remember.
I cannot believe you don't remember. I say it like every day.
She does, but I can't think of the word compassion.
Compassion. It's like you need to have compassion, even if it doesn't matter who they are. If they come in and they need something, you have to be compassionate to them. I promise you, I say that to him like every day.
But it goes two ways, though. That's
Melissa.
House of Plaid Fuzz was saying.
Yeah, that's Melissa.
Not just between. It's not just about changing someone and thinking there's their better behavior or that you're better or that what you have is better. You also can't enable people. So it goes back and forth. On the one hand, you have what would normally be considered sort of sinful behavior, not recognizing that overabundance of kindness too is bad. It's a sin.
Well,
I would say it is.
No, because it's the goodness of God that brings man to repentance. But it's the goodness of God.
The goodness of God, yes.
Not you giving into everything that they need. So I just want to
maybe
define
yes.
that carefully. Yeah, the Lord is always good. And it's His goodness that actually brings someone to repentance. And I always try to remember that.
You shouldn't be good.
Yes.
But sometimes you have to remember.
Well, you just have to remember if you're giving into them for you, or
for God,
or for them. Yes, it has to have the right attitude. Because sometimes you can just give people what they want just so you feel good about it, and sometimes you actually are not giving them what they want because you know is actually what's best for them. So you have to walk that line really carefully.
It kind of gives you a different perspective on the Lord too when you think about it, because sometimes people want to judge what's written about the Lord and His rules for how to live and things like that, and they want to say that it's horrible to make those decisions, but it's not.
Yeah, and becoming a Christian definitely doesn't automatically heal any addictions or sickness or anything like that. But I will say this. I will say this. Once you become a Christian, there should be a change within you that develops. It's not necessarily like in one moment, like, oh, I want to change everything in my life. It doesn't. It does happen for some people that way. I can't say that it doesn't. For some people, they get saved and they like drop all these major things. They just drop it. I can only say that's the Lord because I can't imagine it being anything else. But then other people, the Lord works through them over time. It's not all at once. It's, with Paul was saved on the road to Damascus all at once. But Peter needed to learn his lessons over time.
But even Paul had his thorn.
True.
And so there are some things I think that are just a struggle.
So all of that stuff is, that's just how the Lord handles it. It's His business. But Abby says, I'm still struggling with my own addictions. I'm surrounded by people with addiction issues, which is why it's hard to make changes. It is. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's best to surround, like that Psalm 1 verse we just read, walk not in the, my mind has so many things on it, I'm totally not going to get it right, so I'm going to read it. That whole idea that your delight is in the law of the Lord. And because of that, here we go. It said, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. So you're not going to walk and be encouraged by the people who are doing ungodly things, nor standing in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. You're not even going to surround yourself by people who aren't focused on the Lord. The whole idea is that your delight is going to be in the law of the Lord, and you're going to meditate on that day and night, and that's what's going to help you make changes. You can't continue to surround yourself with people who are doing the same thing, because if you keep doing the same things, you're going to get the same results. You know what I mean? So you've got to actually make some sincere changes that are rooted in a desire to be closer to the Lord, and that's I can't tell you how many times that I've struggled with some things and I've had to pray on it continually. It doesn't come easy. Everybody has things that they need to break and things that they need to get away from. And you just got to seek the Lord on it earnestly, fervently.
It's hard, I think, not just when you're around people, but when you have friends and you're trying to change behavior and they all have it.
Yeah. Rachel's Nest says 2 steps forward, 3 steps back sometimes. Absolutely. I have a few people that can't be friends with me because I'm a churchgoer. Yeah, you know, I've always said that I don't really cut people off. I love everybody, no matter where they are.
A lot of people cut themselves off.
Yes, but exactly. There are a lot of people that don't necessarily want to be with me because I'm not doing things that they're into. I don't cut anybody off, though. There is only one person in my entire life that I had to actually cut off, and that was because they crossed a line that was absolutely unacceptable to me. And so, and it's not even that I cut them off like I won't speak to them in public, but I cannot continue a friendship with them. You know what I mean?
There have been times, I think Mama takes this sometimes a little too far. There have been times when you should have cut some people off.
I should have.
Yes.
But I don't. But I think there are...
And I have the opposite problem.
Yes. I was just going to say that. I was like, but there are some people who cut everybody off. And you just got to figure out where you are in that. You know, and if you honestly assess within yourself, I'm the kind of person that I don't cut anybody off. I still want to maintain my relationship with them. Then you have to maintain the relationship, and you have to figure out what distance you need to be at in order to maintain that relationship and still maintain your integrity.
I think that out of all of us in this family, Richard is probably the best at that.
At doing what?
At being
Maintaining
friendly,
relationships and keeping a distance?
For the right reasons.
Yes.
For the right reasons.
Melissa says, I always think of Hosea and Gomer. She was an alcoholic, but she was falling back into a wicked lifestyle. And sometimes God calls you to go through the trenches with someone, but with purpose. Yes. You just have to make sure that Hosea and Gomer were a very specific example. And they were married. And there was a connection there that could not be unbroken and be right with the Lord. A lot of times people, I think, try to walk a journey with someone who's really struggling, and rather than lift them up, they get pulled down into it. And so that should be entered into with great caution. Great caution.
I think, as always, the Lord is the best example himself.
I'm a little or none person when it comes to friendships. I wish it wouldn't be that way quite as much. Yeah, well, Melissa said, I've definitely cut people off, but some of those relationships have been restored later. And sometimes you do need to do that. Sometimes you need to step away from them for a little while and say, you know what, I can't right now. And then you can come back to it later when you have the ability to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, this was a lot of discussion on friendships.
It's a difficult challenge.
I think so. I think that's when people think of young people, they think of young teens, early 20s. They thank you, Linda. You're wise for your youth. Brian's he's a great boy, but I'm partial.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
I guess when people think of teenagers, that's all they think about is their relationships with other people. And I think that they think that's the biggest challenge facing young people.
I think sometimes that has an adverse effect too. The undue focus to it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. I saw her say dramatically flounce, and I was like,
flounce, what?
I was like, I know. That's why I said. I was like, what about dramatically flounce?
This is our new phrase for the evening.
I know. She said I used to like dramatically flounce when someone offended me, but I'm getting more patient in my old age.
You know, some people actually keep a book where they write down phrases like this, and I wish I had one right now.
Dramatically flounce.
That I need.
Sorry, it threw me off. I don't know. I guess.
But I think sometimes that there's an undue focus on the social aspect of what it means to be a person or a young person, either one. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes why people don't have much foundation in themselves.
Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't know what you guys would ask when given the kids to talk to for an hour. Mm-hmm. But I guess I just thought that it would be more broad in the topic, like maybe about work or about college choices or things like that having to do with faith. But I guess when you think about it, the idea of kids and their friends is, I guess, the most worrisome part, because most of these guys are parents, is they're more worried about their friends and their influence rather than all the other details. Because it's so much easier to just think, oh, they'll go to college, they'll be fine, they'll get a job, they'll be fine.
It's a lot easier, and it's not easy by any means, but it's a lot easier to build a strong person than it is to weed out all the bad things in their life.
True. So just don't allow the bad things in to begin with. I mean, it's kind of like a garden, really.
It is.
Because you have a garden, and if you let the weeds grow up, it's a lot harder to clear it out.
Well, it's like if you grow a plant in a pot. Because eventually one day you're going to have to put it out in the ground. And so they'll have to be ready for that. But that doesn't mean that you, one, have to surround them with weeds in the first place. But two, the most important thing is to grow a strong plant first. And so it's not necessarily about controlling every little aspect of someone's social relationships or saying that this person's good for them to be around or this person's bad for them to be around. It's saying to yourself, is this person, is this child of mine, this friend, this parent, whoever it may be, are they strong people? Am I helping them, basically?
Melissa said, I don't think this generation is any different than the ones before it. I don't think they are either.
I think that's actually a business problem there. You know, they break down people into their market groups and their segments, and people always talk about these generations like they're so different one from another.
He has a business degree, by the way.
Well, I think that's
nobody talks about market segments, Brian.
Well, I think that's where the difference came from, though, because this is something that came from from the 60s and from the 40s. You know.
You make me want to dramatically flounce. She said, I personally think there are people you shouldn't be friends or have a friendly relationship with. I'm cross who I should have for eggs. Well, yes, different people can handle it different ways. She says, I actually admire so many of my daughter's friends, whether I agree with them or not. They're so much more aware than I was at that age. Well, they're aware. Some of them are aware a lot.
It always happens. The phone rings.
There it is. Okay. All right.
Although you're going to have to check that message later.
Okay, I shall. So, that is all we are going to hold you down for, Brian. And Brianna escaped.
Well, I've been in it for an hour now. I may as well just say through the whole thing.
This is the whole thing.
Oh, this is our
1 hour
Bible study?
Yeah, Bible Q&A. They can ask anything.
I've been listening the whole time, though.
There we go. We are, we only do an hour unless Dad keeps talking, which you know that
Well, maybe
never
that's
ends.
why I'm used to it.
Yes,
Not being
exactly.
Once it gets started, there's no stopping.
I'm pretty good on a schedule. She said Brian is just getting warmed up.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. I can talk when I have to. But...
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you came in and spent time with us. Where's Rick? Rick, I could not wake up. That's why we're praying for him to get a new job. So, anyway, maybe next time we'll have Ricky and Marquise on.
That'd be good.
If ever I can't get Rick up again, then you'll get Ricky and Marquise next time, and we'll ask them some questions. And hopefully it's giving you a little bit of an insight on the kids and their thoughts and
hopefully it was some help to you.
How they handle some biblical situations. So if you guys have any other questions, you can put those down in the comments, or you can message us on Fundamental Faith on Facebook or Fundamental Home on Facebook. Excuse me. Or you can message me on Instagram as well. You cannot message Brian because he doesn't do social media.
I hide.
So, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, yes, thank you for praying for Rick. And, I'm going to close in a word of prayer, and we'll just pray since we're closing it down. So, let's just close it out, okay? Do you want to pray, or you want me to?
I'll let you.
You'll let me pray. Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for bringing us together tonight and giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts on your word with other folks. And thank you that you've allowed the children to have some wisdom in your word and that they've been able to communicate that with others. So we just pray for folks that are here and all their needs, both physical and spiritual, that you would help them and encourage them. And Lord, bring us back together next week. And also bring my husband, help with his job situation so he can come back and do the Bible Q&A with us as well. We love you and we thank you. In Christ's name, amen. All right, guys. You all have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.